your new channel, uh, which is yet another channel, pronounced Yak, not YAC, and that's just for no particular reason actually. So let's just call it Yak because I'm right now south of the Himalayas, so thinking about Yak, but also thinking about the YouTube channel. So like yet another channel, YAC. So here we actually are going to look at a problem that I came across. So when I see a lot of YouTube channels, they're amazing and they're like really useful for me. So like there's a lot of links that they usually provide right in the subtext of the YouTube channel. So if you go to let's say MKBHD's channel, and you see, okay, so I'm signed out, so actually you can't see what you can't see how many times I've watched or like what channels I've viewed from MKBHD or other YouTubers. But the key idea that I wanted to get across is that the more channels I watch and the more videos that I watch on different topics, there's a lot more to learn. And sometimes the additional material is located outside of YouTube. So people usually link to them in their videos. So let's say what's in his tech ads, and you can actually see that there's like a lot of stuff that he's provided links to, and they all use like Amazon's official. In this particular case, they use Amazon's URL shortener. So one of the the problems that I was thinking about was, how do I actually solve for tracking where like my YouTube audience might actually click through once they've seen the video. So if today I thought I'll actually see how hard is it to build, and is it something that MKBHD or other YouTubers could do it themselves, because this use case is actually for a very specific use case. So for affiliate marketing, so MKBHD spends all his time and effort to explain the utility of a lot of products without you purchasing them, so that you can take a better buying decision. So Amazon provides him with incentives to actually, not be biased in his decision making and buy any product that he can choose to on Amazon, and get analytics on that. So how convincing was he? Let's say in MKBHD can see for himself how good he was at explaining some features of a certain product, and that helps MKBHD get better and better every day. So I wanted to see if I could do this, but like a little bit more general purpose, because some of the videos that I have are about like softwares. So this channel, I wanted to review a lot of softwares. So let's say there's Dashlane, let's say there's like, so I use Dashlane and there's like different kinds of softwares. How do I actually go and really, get data on like where YouTubers are actually finding the need for me to explain in the videos, and where it might be useful for me to, contribute in some manner. So I might miss out on, say, headphones, and I might not be able to explain enough features about the headphone, related features of Loom, when I'm talking about Loom, like in the earlier video. So to avoid that, I wanted to just get some data on like what are people clicking for, what are people asking for, what are they thinking about before they type in the comment on YouTube, so that I can prevent myself from putting out bad videos. So or videos that are not useful for a lot of people. So I thought, let's make like a URL link translator in 2020. So this is like, how will the URL link translator look like in 2020? So we're trying to just picture in your mind that you come to my channel, you come to Yak, and you're looking for some insight on something like, hey, what can Yak tell me that nobody else can tell me? Or what can Yak do that nobody else can do for me? And I say, hey, so I'll put out this short software review video, and can you take a look and see if you like it and go and use it? And it turns out that a lot of people really think about software not as individual software, but as composition of pieces. So your phone is a composition of the apps that you use. It's not necessarily the phone itself or the iOS itself, or it's not the Apple Store itself. It's not like the Play Store itself, but it's not, for example, the Windows Store itself on the apps they're in, but basically how you use the computer. It's like a music piece that you're composing. So when you're composing music with your work, how do you actually want the software to look like. So how would a workflow for that look like? And if you could, let's say, based on the data that on the tools that you're using, you would like to see Yak to suggest better videos for you, which is me in this in the Yak channel, then I'll be able to do that if I gave you a little bit of software that you could, hey, put this on your device, install this app, install the Yak app, and I'll tell you exactly what videos might be relevant for you from all the software reviews that I do. And I'll end up saving a lot of time, and I'll be able to better support the existing audience that I have for Yak, rather than going out looking for new audience and new ways to make money in a more dependent fashion and suddenly become lose interest in the channel. So I don't want to demotivate myself from delivering value to my audience. So that was the basic motive. So I thought I'll actually show you a workflow. So think about this as like not a single product review. So we're going to see like a few products during this piece, but we're actually going to compose these products to get something done which might be of interest to you. So first thing before we start, I want to just note down what would this look like, So as a sample project, let's take URL link translation. So I want something that'll give me data, and I'm going to use this on Yak, the YouTube channel. But I want something that will tell me just the number of times somebody has clicked through a link on YouTube that I provided. And I want to see just one thing, which is the count. Okay, how many times have people clicked on which kind of video? I don't know anything about who's clicking on it. I don't know anything about, from where they're clicking on it, nothing of that nature. But at least I want to know that, okay, I covered let's say I covered 3 to 4 softwares during this workflow session here. Then how many of these softwares are actually are of interest to people who are watching this video? It might be the same workflow, but people might be using some other software better than what I'm suggesting. So I would like to kind of get a rough idea of that by just seeing how many are clicking through to different links in the details on the channel of this particular video. So let's just make a URL link translator. So I'm going to just start off with Notion, which is this is software that is a community wiki, with personal, kind of capabilities like private. You can have your private space, and you can also have a community wiki space. So I'll actually make this public as well after the video, so that you can see what we did. So let's make a URL link translator. Okay. So let's say what's the aim. Okay. So let's just see what the aim is. Okay. So this is how Notion works. So you type // and you get a bunch of options of different data types you can use to represent your text document. So it's the same as clicking on something in Office and really selecting bullet points or lists or tables and stuff like that. So it's kind of similar, except that it's like you can kind of do it only from the keyboard, so without using the mouse. So heading 1. Okay, so let's just see what the heading 1 is. So here I want to aim. Okay, so let's write down what the aim of this video is. Okay, so this is the name. It's got two different. So I was just thinking about what I was going to write. So it turns out there are 2 examples here of aims that I want to do. Okay, one of them is for the audience of this channel. So the first aim, let's just make this as checkboxes or to-do lists. So is to improve the readability of shared URLs on Yak. Okay, and the second goal is to show the count of click-throughs on each shared URL on YouTube. So okay, so let's just highlight who this is for, just so that we can be aware. Okay, so this is the people who derive value out of this, and it's a loop between these two checkboxes that this tool will continuously improve my workflow. So that's why it's worth spending time on today to do this. So that's how I've justified it. So, and now, how am I going to do it? So let's just say how. So there's a lot of ways to do this actually. But I want to try a way in which anyone can do this, as many people as possible. So I want MKBHD to be able to do this on his own, if it's possible. I want like if there's a artist on YouTube, or like there's Voice Avenue, there's like a lot of these wonderful channels on YouTube that in different areas, and I think they should all be able to derive benefit by the aim, which seems like it should apply to everyone, or at least should be of interest if they want to know. So how do I do this actually? So what I'm thinking is, I'm going to use I need a place to run software that can process the readable URL link. Okay, so you saw that Amazon.tool, right? So which was on the channel of MKBHD. So it's similar to that, but like somewhere it should be linked to some place that can process it. So we'll figure out where to put that in a short time. And I need a place to generate a readable URL from, let's just call the regular URL as a long string URL. So I need a place that can generate a readable URL from a long string URL. Okay, so let's just remove this word link, because let's just be, we've kind of dived in now, so like we need to just use lesser and lesser and lesser words to describe more and more meaningful things. So let's just call it readable URL, and that's it. Okay, now we also talked about something else, which was the count, right? So we were like, we need to show the count of click-throughs on each shared URL for myself, and I could choose, like as a channel maintainer, I could choose to open up that number as well to the audience. Okay, so that should be fairly straightforward, but where are we going to store that count? Okay, so I need a place to run software that can increment the count of times a readable URL has been clicked upon. Not clicked, because actually Google runs the website, right? YouTube. So there's no way I can know how many times you've clicked on it. But at least I'll be able to tell you in the processing chain that, hey, somebody from my channel subscribers actually clicked on a URL, on a readable URL that I put out. and I processed it for them, and I gave them the actual URL, which was the most relevant one or the most updated version, or it could be the most diverse or neutral opinion based on facts if it's a news link. So you have all these Mac rumors and all, right? So maybe I could choose to update that URL later with a more representative sample of what might actually be talked upon in the YouTube video. So what I need to know here is how many times has a readable URL been processed. So I cannot know how many times it's been clicked right now. So because that's on the YouTube page. So that's out of scope of like the current session. So a readable URL has been processed. Now, what is meant by processed? Okay, so we used the word here that can process the readable URL. So let's just expand upon that and make it more clear. So that can process the readable URL and return a long string URL. So it's kind of like becomes quite simple, right? So we can actually go for a more clear numbered list, because this seems like fairly, or we can go with the checkbox itself. This seems fairly like and okay, so and yeah, so let's keep it simple. Let's say this is all we want to do. Okay, so what we can do here is expand upon each one of these and say that, okay, this is what we're going to do here to complete this task. So we just go tab, we'll put a sub checkbox. So you press tab and you can go and put a checkbox within a checkbox and say, it looks like we need a database. The database needs to store a relationship between the readable URL and the long string URL. Okay, that makes sense. I think it makes sense, right? Like, so if you have a readable URL and you have some process that is going to return you a long string URL given the readable URL, then that needs to be stored. That relationship needs to be stored somewhere, right? And let's go and write the same thing for the next task as well, because now I need to, at least here, if I am running the channel, I need to be able to generate a readable URL from a long string URL myself. Okay, so that I can make it, I can creatively do that and leave the accessing that to everyone else in the world. And I would also be benefited from this, because since this is public, somebody else might do this for their YouTube channel, and we can all learn from each other better in this way. So it looks like we need a database for me as well. It's the same database. It might be the same database. It will be actually in this case, to keep it simple. But like for now, all that matters is that we need a database where this relationship between the readable URL and the long string URL is stored. So so we're going to type that out again, because it looks like that's the answer for this as well. So we're going to reverse the relationship though, because this is a directed relationship, because this direction is should be authorized. There should be some authorization mechanism for this. It cannot be public, because then I would be offering a way for anyone to generate short, readable URLs out of long string URLs for something that I'm designing or making for a very particular purpose. Now, of course, it could expand in scope. If all YouTubers agree that okay, this is where we're all going to store our short form URLs and readable URLs, and so let's keep that a little aside for now. And it just appears that we need to distinguish between the request that is coming for a readable URL to a long string URL and the request that is coming for a long string URL to a readable URL. Then it looks like we need a place to run software that can increment the count of times a readable URL has been processed. So this means that like every time somebody clicks on the readable URL, irrespective of whether it's me, if I click on it just to test, or if you click on it because I said something in the video that made you want to click on that readable URL and go and check it out. Maybe it was like an interesting software. Maybe it was a link to Notion itself that you want to go and check it out. So yeah, so this thing that we're building, this URL translator, needs to record that and increment that number. So that sounds like a pretty doable thing actually, right? So yeah, it looks like we need a database, and this time we're just going to like copy only the first part, because what we want the database for, the purpose is actually something else, or at least it's different, right? It looks like we need a database, but this time the database needs to store a count, a number. Let's be very specific. A number that counts that equals the count of the times that a readable URL has been processed. That seems fairly straightforward. So somebody's coming and click. It's not the reverse though. So we're not going to store the count of how many URLs were generated, but that's outside the scope of this particular task today. So this is what we need right now, okay? So this is all we need. So actually, now that I'm reading this out, I actually didn't plan out this video. So it looks like this is not the how, but this is the why. Oh, sorry, what? This is the what. What are we building? And how we're going to do this. So okay, so now let's think about how are we going to do this. We are going to need a database. Okay, so it needs to store a relationship between these two strings. It looks like these data types of strings. They're actually not strings, but they are strings. So it's a string that is representing a certain protocol and a certain standard, IETF standard. So let's just call them a string for now. So how are we going to do that? So we'll need a database. We'll set up a database first. Okay. We'll set up a database first. We will actually we will set up a database first. We will set up a way to access the database for all the use cases. So each of these things that we wrote down here, this is called the use case. So this part, this is the use case. So we'll just italicize that because this is what we want to do. And it looks like these three use cases are the ones that we want to do. So we'll actually make this like really, really specific here. So we'll set up a database, and we'll also set up a way to access the database. So why is this like two different things? Because having a database is a responsibility. It's not an access concern. So one of the good things about programming is that it will kind of help you learn how to distinguish between things that might be similar on the outside. So what I mean by that is you can actually read things that are different from what it might seem when you're reading the code. So there's a famous concept in programming. So the concept is separation of concerns. So one piece of code, let's define a piece of code as like a task, or it could be a task that your manager gave you at work. It could be something that you are trying to do on your own when you're free at home on Sundays or Saturdays. But basically, there is a way to separate concerns, and sometimes that's good to think about it, but not like think about it because you have to do that everywhere. In fact, that might become a bottleneck. But the reason we wrote these two things separately is that we are trying to understand what task accomplishes what. So which of these tasks accomplishes this? So when we say we will set up a database first, that's only going to help us accomplish the first sentence of each of these use cases. It's not going to do any of the things that are there in the second sentence, which is the actual use case that we have. So the first sentence of the use cases identifies a need, and this actions fulfills that need. So it just matches that equally, or like solves that until we can find out that there's something more we need. And the second sentence here, it's about us setting up a way to access the database for the use cases. So the access patterns that are included here, it seems like there's a large number of people who could potentially be exposed to this process that's running. So there's going to be a lot of requirements. For example, I've heard that Google One is launching a VPN service for Google Android devices, and I think Mozilla already has a Mozilla VPN. So if somebody was using a VPN and I'd like to make sure that like there's the requests that are coming to this database are safe, and they're also like, and the data that's going out of the database is also safe. And by safe, I mean that it's, for example, if we don't cache the data, if there's a process in between that does not cache the data, like it's actually hitting my database every time somebody's clicking on it, it might cause my database to go down. So these are called rate limits. So I need a lot of things other than just having a database to use the database actually. So there's stuff like authorization. There is stuff like authorization for creating a readable URL for me, and there's authorization for clicking through a YouTube URL. So if somebody's coming from a website other than YouTube, the URLs that I am going to put up on YouTube should work only for YouTube, so that I can tell, okay, my YouTube audience is doing this, but I'm not able to do the same thing with my audience in some other product. What could be the reason? Can I go and like figure out how I could reach out to 2-3 people who could help me with that? So that's how we kind of justify separating the actions that we're doing of setting up the database first and then setting up a way to access the database for the use cases. So we're only going to do these two things, but we're going to use a few tools to do that. So we'll do that in the next video. This is just a definition of the problem, and I'll be sharing the link of this page with the completed version very soon. But this is how we'll get started. So the next part 2 of this video is going to contain us actually doing this task, and we'll hopefully try to complete it in exactly the same time that we took to think about what we wanted to do. So that's going to be a very healthy, I think, goal. to have. So hopefully this was useful, and try out the product Notion that I'm using to make this. It's amazing. It's like really flexible, and it kind of encapsulates a lot of use cases. So if a machine was ever going to use a computer the way humans do, I think Notion is the product that probably it would start with, because it's kind of really easy to learn, and it covers a lot of use cases. So if I want APIs to represent a machine completing a task, like how I would complete a task in the next video, because I don't want to keep doing this after 10 years. I want some APIs, and I want to run some processes, and I want to set up some system wherein it's easier for me to, for us to all figure out how this could be, accomplished without me manually coding. So maybe we'll just do something on the phone, we'll play a GUI, and we'll execute this with one click. So when we click this, it's actually going to get done. So that would be amazing, but we don't have that today. There's no way to go from natural language to something which is completely, done. So we are somewhere in between. So like that's okay. So so for now we haven't done the task yet. We're going to do it in the next video. Okay then. See you and have a nice day. Stay healthy. Be safe. Please take care of your families. Please take care of your children. Please take care of your parents, and keep learning and keep teaching everyone else, so that we can together figure out a way of like saving time and working towards more wonderful goals. Okay then. Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. Bye.